A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So again, we're doing ruku number 4 today of Juzz number 3, which is verses 261 through 266 of Surah Baqarah. So we'll inshallah start with the dua. Allahumma arinal haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arinal batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. O Allah, show us the truth as truth and give us the ability to follow it, and show us falsehood as falsehood and give us the ability to avoid it. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Alright, so a quick recap of what we have done so far, right, in the previous rukus that we've done. So one thing is that it was a call to believers, right? This is the 8th time in Surah Baqarah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling the believers to spend in the way of Allah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically saying, if you are not going to spend, right, then you are not earning the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are not spending in the way of Allah. Obviously, we talked about one verse, which is La ikraha fid deen. What does that mean?
There's no compulsion in the deen.
No compulsion in the deen, right? Which means that if I got up late in the morning, right, and I didn't feel like getting out of bed, and my mom comes in and says, pray Fajr. Can I say La ikraha fid deen, mom? No compulsion in religion, mom. Right? Can I do that? Based on the ayah? The ayah says no compulsion in religion. Can't do that, right? Because that ayah is only talking about acceptance of religion. That you cannot force somebody to accept Islam, right? But once you are inside the fold of Islam and you are a Muslim, then you have to follow the laws of what Islam defines. And one of the laws of anybody who is, a sane, mature person, and has reached the age of puberty, they have to pray, right? Unless there is a reason why they cannot. So we cannot use that verse to say no compulsion in religion. Okay, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He brings everybody to light, but there is somebody that takes people away from light. Who is that somebody? Shaitan and our nafs, and what's the one word to describe all of that? Taghut, right? Anything that takes us away from the remembrance of Allah and from following the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is defined as Taghut. And there is a lot of things that fall within that. And then obviously we, went through the story of Ibrahim, right? Last time. We went through how many stories last time? 3 stories, right? So we talked about that story last. So verse number 261. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Masalul lazina yunfiquna, the example of those who spend amwalahum, their wealth, fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah, right? Now, in the previous ayahs, we were talking about spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we need to focus on is not just spending of our spending, right? That, hey, I'm going to the mall and buy clothes, or I'm going to buy this latest gadget or this or that. It is spending in the way of Allah for the sake of others, right? For others, for the sake of Allah, but spending for others. What does that mean? So if, let's say, you're only worried about your own self, right? Am I well fed? Do I have enough money? Do I have a big house? Do I have all the gadgets that I need? Do I have the nicest car? Do I have the nicest clothes? If it's all about me, right? Then that is something that is not the way of a Muslim. A Muslim is a one who is worried about his brother more than he might be worried about himself. In the battles that took place in Islam, there was a case when people were hurt. There was blood that was flowing. It was not like a blood where, they had like a tiny little pin that sort of went into their finger and they were like crying, oh, look at that. It was not like that. It was basically people who were fighting with swords. Some had their hands cut, some had their legs cut. They were lying on the ground. It was a battle, right? And many of them were thirsty. It was after a battle. Somebody came in. They had water with them, and they were trying to give water to this one Sahabi, and he didn't take it because he heard another Sahabi cry out for water, and he said, "Can you go give it to my brother first?" And then the person went around to like 6 or 7 people like that, and then as he went on to the other person, right? They always would say, they would hear somebody else and they would say, "Go give the water to somebody else," and they would go on to the next person. And then by the time they came around, the first person had passed away, and then the second person had passed away, and the third person had passed away. Even when they were in that state, when they were hurt and about to die, they were caring more about their brother. Lesson for all of us is, how much do we care about each other? Is it all about us, of anything that we do, right? Or is it true caring that we have for others? Do you, when you're walking inside a building and you see someone coming behind you, do you stay there to hold the door for the other person to go through first? Or do you just go in and don't even care about who's behind you? Think about that, right? It's a question for your own self. It's not for you to answer to me. You are answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to me or not to anybody else, right? But think about it. This shows the manners of Muslims, and it truly reflects what a person thinks on the inside, right? They say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. It's the company that you keep. You can either bring somebody to goodness or you can take somebody away from goodness. Question is, who are you? Which category do you fall in, right? That's a question we need to answer for our own self. Now the thing is that there is a hadith, and the meaning of that hadith basically says, if you are worried about your brother, Allah will help you in your affairs, right? Now that doesn't mean that you worry about, you have to go to talk to your friend's mom because you're worried about your friend, that your friend does not have like 12 hours to play a video game and he is stuck with his studies. That's not a way of worrying about your brother, okay? You worry about your brother for good things, not in things like that, right? Not in things like, the mom is not letting my brother go to like a restaurant with me so that we can have fun. Okay, that's not a reason for you to worry about. But it's worry about, is my brother coming to the masjid for prayers, right? Is my brother getting up for salah? Is he praying his salah on time? Those are the things you worry about, right, for your brother, for the sake of Allah. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in this verse, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. The example of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is about to tell us the benefit of spending in the way of Allah. Now, what is spending in the way of Allah? Do you folks have $1,000? Maybe. Some of you might, right? Do you have $10,000? Maybe not yet, right? But wealth is not just money. Wealth is a lot of other things. Wealth is your talent. Wealth is your time. Wealth is how much you really care about somebody, right? It could be even your own real, true blood brothers and sisters, right? Do you really care about them? Do you give it, if you have a young, let's say even an older or a younger brother or sister, right? And there is one piece of cookie, right? A chocolate chip cookie that's left. Would you give it to your brother or sister first, or would you take it for yourself? That most of us, I wouldn't say that. I hope you do, but what I've seen is many people don't. They'll be happy eating the cookie themselves, right? And they will just be fine with that. So again, that's a question for each one of us to answer, right? Of how we do some of that. Okay, so there are multiple ways of spending, right? Some people spend in sadaqah, some people will spend money in interest and things like that. Now, what we need to realize is that the word nafaq, right? Yunfiku is from the root. What are the root letters for yunfiku? Noon fa qaf. Nafaq. Nafaq basically means a tunnel, right? So infaq, if we don't do infaq, what is infaq? What is the meaning of infaq? To spend, right? Infaq is to spend. If we don't do infaq, then we will get into nifaq. And what is nifaq? What is nifaq? Could be miserliness. You can, that is an angle of that, right? Who is a munafiq? Hypocrite. It's from the same root letters, right? You become a munafiq, you can become a hypocrite, because some people can do that. How do they become hypocrite? Some people may still spend but still be considered munafiq. Why is that? Because of what? Because of they want to show others. It's their intention, right? What is your intention? Is your intention to please Allah, or is your intention to have other people say good things about you, and that's why you're doing what you're doing? You're holding the door for somebody else, or you can have other people say, oh, look at that kid, mashallah, that brother is like so nice, right? Is that why you hold the door, or do you hold the door because you want it to be for the sake of Allah, right? So that is what makes a difference. And then, you can, obviously there are other things that you can give besides wealth: your time, right? Your effort, your energies, your talent, things. So now verse number 261 continues, and it says, Kamasali habbatin, the example. So we are continuing the verse, right? The example of those who spend in the way of Allah. Kamasali habbatin is like a seed of grain. Sab'a sanabila. Sab'a means 7, right? Sab'a sanabila, which grows 7 spikes. Fi kulli sumbulatin, and in each spike, mi'atin means 100. Mi'atin habba is 100 grains. Now, let's talk about some of the words. So habbatin, kamasali habbatin. What are the root letters for that? Hababa. And it means a grain, right? So habbatin means a grain. Ambatat. What are the root letters for that? Ambatat is, and that will show how many of you actually wrote it down too. Noon bata, right? And it means grows. So kamasali hambatin ambatat, like a seed of grain that grows. Sanabil. What is sanabil? Root letters for that. Sin, Nun, Balam. It has 4 root letters, right? Typically, we've seen most of the words have 3. This one has 4. There's few words which have 4 root letters. Sanabil means ears, right? The spikes that come out. If you've seen like a corn plant, right? The seed that grows and that has like ears, not your ears, but the plant's ears that grow out of the stem that comes out. Mi'atin. What are the root letters for that? Mi'atin. Mi'atin? Mim Hamzaya. That's right. Mim Hamzaya. It means 100. So a person who is giving charity is like, let's say you give $1 for charity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that it will grow 7 spikes, and each spike will have 100 grains, which means your $1 will be converted to not just 100. It grows out 7, and then each of those have another 100. So it becomes 700, right? So $1 can convert into $700, right? It multiplies 700 times. Now the question is that if you have a seed, and if you keep the seed with you because you don't want to give it away, you don't want to part away with your seed and you want to hold on to your seed, will it grow anything? No, right? It's not going to grow anything. So, but if you sow the seed, then it converts into 700. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that your good deed, the reward for that will get multiplied up to 700 times, right? And that's a great return. So if you take a look at the corn plant, right, you sow a seed and then it comes out, it has shoots that come out. It can have 7 spikes and sometimes even more than 7 spikes, even the same seed. And then each will have 100 grains in it, right? So imagine if you're getting that kind of a return. There is nothing in the world that can give you that kind of a return, right? 700 times when you give away something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 261, Wallahu yuda'ifu liman yasha. And Allah multiplies His reward for whom He wills, right? Liman yasha, for whom He wills. Wallahu wasi'un alim. And Allah is all encompassing, all knowing. So the word yuda'ifu, what are the root letters for that? Da'ad and fa. And it means to multiply, right? To increase many, many, many times. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very, very generous and very appreciative of good deeds that are done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Now, what does that mean? That means that it is not the quantity that matters, it is the quality that matters, right? It does not matter how many good things you do. You don't have to do 100 good things in a day. Even if you do one good thing, but your intention was purely for the sake of Allah with nothing else, right? That will be better for you. Now, obviously we talked about it is all about the intention. The other thing is that whenever you are giving something, give the best of the things. You don't give away your torn, worn clothes for the sake of Allah. That's not for the sake of Allah. That's to get rid of the clothes, right? You give the best of what you have, right? You give the best of your clothes. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also rewards on intentions. So let's say that you heard that, for example, let's say Muslims across the world, right, are in a very challenging spot. People in Middle Eastern countries, Syria, other countries, right, they are challenged. Some people have their homes that are torn down and all that stuff. Let's say you have a pure intention to help them somehow, and you're thinking about it, and you're actually putting in an effort to think about how can I truly help them. Even though you cannot fly out to Syria, right, or you cannot fly out to China to help somebody over there. You may not have the money to give away, but as long as you have the intention, Allah will even reward you in your intention. That you are even thinking about it sincerely, of how can I help. And when you actually do something, obviously the rewards get multiplied. But even your intention counts. So always remember that make an intention for doing good, always, in your life. Even if you're not able to do it, Allah does not judge you based on the results that you get. Allah will judge you based on the effort that you put in. Now, if you don't put in any effort, I mean, we know where we're going to get. But it's all about your effort. How much effort are you putting in? When the alarm rings in the morning, do you make an effort to get out of bed? Or do you say, oh man, it's already too late, let's not worry about it? Or do you feel truly sorry if you're late? That, I'm sorry that I missed my salah, I'm going to make it up quickly. It's all about the intention. The other thing to remember is that Allah notices everything. Allah knows about every leaf that falls to the ground and every leaf that grows on a tree, right? So do you think Allah will not know what's in your heart? Do you think Allah is not going to notice when you do a good deed? Allah does notice everything, right? Whatever good you do, whatever good you have in your mind, and whatever good you actually end up doing. Allah notices everything, and there is an account for everything. That is going to come out on the day of judgment for all of us. So we need to reflect, and this is a lesson for all of us, is that we need to reflect on, because there's 5 questions that every human being is going to be asked on the day of judgment. And 2 of those questions are, how did you earn your money and where did you spend your money? I will have to answer for that, right? That's a question that everybody will be asked, right? And we will have to answer, and you cannot make up excuses at the time, right? It will be what we did is going to come out truly from the bottom of the heart. So we talked about how the good deeds get multiplied, 700 times. So subhanAllah, there is obviously a lot of bank balance of good deeds that we can build while we are alive, because that is the only time when we can start depositing that, that sadaqah jariyah, all right, that sadaqah in our favor for the next world. So Allah multiplies His reward for whom He wills. Number 262 says, Allazina yunfiquna amwalahum fi sabilillahi. Those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah, thumma la yutbi'una, and then do not follow up ma anfaqu, with what they have spent, mannaw, with reminders of it, wala aza, or other injury. Now what does that mean? So we talked about, in the previous ayah, we talked about what was the benefit, right, of spending. That spending gets multiplied up to 700 times. Now, when you are ready to spend in the way of Allah, who becomes active? Shaitan, right? Shaitan becomes active, and he will put you in the state of sinatum. Remember the state of sinatum? We talked about it a couple of classes before. Remember Ayatul Kursi? There is a verse in there. Sinatum wala naum.
Slumber, no sleep.
Right. So Shaitan is going to put you into slumber in this class as well. You know the state of slumber? The example I gave, remember?
Yeah.
When you're sitting in Jummah prayers and your eyes are half closed and you're trying to focus and you're looking at whoever is in the front with like a deer in the headlight, and just like, right? So that happens too. So Shaitan becomes active in every state. So let's talk about some of the words here. Yutbeuna. What are the root letters for that? What does it mean? It means to follow, right? Yutbeuna means to follow. Mannaw. What is the root letters for mannaw? Mim nun nun. Mannaw means to remind others of your generosity. Aza. What are the root letters for aza? Hamza. Zal. Zaya. Right? Aza. It means to hurt. Now, how many times it happens that people, when they spend in the way of Allah, right, whatever they did, they will remind others of the good deed that they did. Remember I gave you that thing? Remember I did that for you? Remember I gave you that thing at that time, right? How many times that happens? Now, reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, now this ayah says reward of giving in the way of Allah is not for those people who do mannaw wala aza, who remind others of their generosity. Man, I gave you $5 that day, give it back to me. Right? Remember? Exactly. Remember that? So if you remind others of your generosity and of your good deeds, you're wasting your good deed. Right? So now reward is obviously with Allah. The thing is that, think of it as this way. If you're trying to grow a plant, there are weeds that will come around the plant, right? Which is stuff like this that will try to waste your plant. Don't waste your plant. Okay? Don't waste your good deed by doing manna and aza. When do people do manna? When do people remind others of their good things? When they want something in return, right? They want somebody else to do something for them. Which means you did that good deed not for the sake of Allah, but you wanted something from somebody else. That's why you did that good thing for them, right? So we need to get away from that. Now the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the believer does not taunt others, he does not curse others, he does not use profanity, and he does not abuse others. This is what a believer does. Question is, do we do any of this? You need to answer for yourself, and think about it. If we do, we need to get away from it. Because if we don't, it's a very slippery slope. Word verse continues and it says, Lahum ajruhum inda rabbihim, will have their reward with their Lord. Wala khawfun alayhim, and there will be no fear concerning them. Wala yahzanun, and nor will they grieve. So when do we become afraid? When do we become afraid?
When we see heights.
When we see heights, okay. And when do we become afraid?
Arachnophobia.
Huh?
Arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia? The dark phobia?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty, right? Where is uncertainty? When you fear that something will happen. When you fear something will happen, right? You have fear of losing something, or you have fear of something happening. That is when you become afraid. Now, if a person spends in the way of Allah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that have no fear. You will not lose anything. This is Allah promising it to you, that you will not lose it. Wala khawfun, have no fear. Wala yahzanun, don't grieve. Right? Now Allah has taken care of you, each one of you, from the time you were born. Right? Allah allowed you to eat or drink the milk when you had no teeth. Right? And let the bodily fluids come out of your body when you were small, when you had no control over that you needed to go to the bathroom or whatever, right? And then Allah has given you the ability to get up even this morning and allow you to be here, right? It is a huge rahmat of Allah, right? Mercy of Allah that He has given us all that. So Allah has taken care of you since you were born. Do you think Allah will not take care of you? Even in the today and tomorrow and day after and next week and next month and next year? Allah takes care of everything. There was actually a story that I wanted to do, but we'll come to that maybe later. So the thing is that Allah says that if you trust Allah, Allah will give you peace and contentment with the things that you have. Now there is a hadith that there are 3 people whom Allah will not even look at or speak to on the day of judgment. One is a person who does man. What is man? Man is to remind others of your generosity. Allah will not even look at or speak to such a person on the day of judgment. Another person is one who drags his lower garment, right? Who basically has his clothes out on the floor, sort of dragging their clothes on the floor as if in a state of pride, right? And sometimes we get into that today also. Many a times, the pants are hanging all the way down. They're just about to fall to the ground, right? We need to think about that, how we dress. A Muslim doesn't dress that way. It seems like your pants are just barely hanging on to your body. And the third person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not even look at or speak to is a person who sells things making false claims. You sell something to your friend. You sell something to your friend and you tell him, man, this works perfectly fine. And when he gets it, it's all broken. The game doesn't even work. Right? So somebody who makes false claims about things and sells those things, Allah will not even take a look, will not even speak to or look at that person on the day of judgment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that somebody who does not do man and adha, which means does not remind others of their generosity and does not hurt others, they will have no fear and they should not grieve. No fear and no grief. Alhamdulillah. And that's the state we need to believe in and we need to live in. Verse number 263 then says, Qawlum ma'rufun wa maghfirah. Kind speech and forgiveness, khayrum min sadaqatin, are better than charity. Yatba'uha adha, followed by injury. Wallahu ghaniyun halim, and Allah is free of need and forbearing. So let's talk about some of these words. So what does the word maruf means? Maruf is kind. What are the root letters for maruf? Ain Rafa. What is adha? Hurt, right? We talked about it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that kind speech and forgiveness are better than doing charity but then hurting others. Okay? So let's say when someone asks you for a chocolate and you grudgingly give the chocolate, here, take it, don't ask me again, don't come back to me, right? You are giving somebody something, but then you're also hurting somebody by saying your words. And Allah is saying kind speech and forgiveness is better than giving charity, giving something to somebody, but then hurting somebody, followed by giving it to them. So imagine you come home from school, right? And you're tired and you have homework and your mom says, can you do the dishes for me? Put stuff in the dishwasher. And you grudgingly, pick up the dishes and start banging the dishes in the dishwasher and then bang the door and then say, here, I'm done. Right? Is that a good way of doing it? Or is a better way of doing it is that you let her know that, Mom, I can help you. I also have homework, so I'll help you for a little bit, but then I need to go do my homework in a nice way. Compare it in your heads, which one is better? And then think about how do we act at home. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do when you're asked, right, at your home to help with stuff at home? Do you do it happily or do you do it grudgingly? That's a question that each one of us has to answer for our own self. So think about it. So speak a good word or remain silent, right? This is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you can speak good, it's better to stay silent than to say something bad. Okay, verse 264. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tubtilu sadaqatikum. O you who have believed, do not invalidate your charities. Bil manni wal aza. Again the same words are repeating. Bil manni wal aza, with reminders or injuries. Kallazi yunfiqu, as does one, yunfiqu, who spends malahu, his wealth, ri'a an nasi, to be seen by the people. Wala yu'min, and does not believe billahi, in Allah, wal yawmil akhir. Wal yawmil akhir, in the last day. So the word tubtilu, what are the root letters for that? Bata? Bata lam. It means to invalidate. The root letters for sadaqatikum. Sad, dal, qaf, right? Sidq. Sidq means truthfulness. And what does that has to do with charity? It means that you are giving things with the purest of the heart. The word ri'a an nasi. What is the word ri'a? What are the root letters for that? Ra hamza, yeah. And it means to be seen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in this verse, O you who have believed, do not invalidate your charity by either reminders to others or by hurting others. Because as does one who spends his wealth only to be seen by Allah. Again, we talked about it, that some people only spend money because they want other people to talk good about them. And they are more worried about how people will perceive them. So this sort of depicts what we were talking about, right? There's this man who says, there's a lady who's begging, and he says, here it is, fi sabilillah, and then he goes forward, and then he is saying, talking to somebody, Assalamu alaikum, how are you doing? Oh, by the way, I just met that beggar lady, and yeah, the one with the little baby, and I gave her some money, You are now, telling others about the good deed that you did, and you're wasting your good deed by doing this, right? So don't waste your good deed. Keep your good deeds, with the purest of the heart and for the sake of Allah. Verse 264 says, فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ صَفْوَانٍ. His example, right, is like, whose example? The example of a person who does man and aza. فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ صَفْوَانٍ. His example is like that of a large, smooth stone, عَلَيْهِ تُرَابٌ, which upon which is dust. There is dust on top of the stone. فَأَصَابَهُ, and his is hit, wabilun fatarakahu salda, is hit by a downpour that leaves it bare. Leaves what bare? The stone. So there was dust on the stone, and there is heavy downpour that comes down, rain falls, and now the stone, there is nothing on the stone. La yaqdiruna ala shay'in mimma kasabu. They are unable to keep anything of what they earned. Wallahu la yahdil qawmal kafirin. And Allah does not guide the disbelieving people. So the word safwanin, what are the root letters for that? Swad fa waw. It means a smooth rock, right? So famasalahu kamasali safwanin, a smooth rock. Turabun. What are the root letters for that? Taraba. And it means dust. Turabun means dust. Fa'asabahu, root letters for fa'asabahu, swad bawaw. Swad wabaw. And it means that something fell on it, right? Wabilun, root letters for wabilun, wabalam. It means heavy rain. Root letters for fatarakahu, tarakaf. It means left it, there is nothing left on it. And solda, swad lam dal. It means bare. What is the lesson out of this? The lesson out of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving this example of a person who does man and aza, who reminds others of his generosity and hurts others, is the example of a stone, a smooth stone that has dust on it. There is rain that falls, and then now the stone is completely clear of anything, that there is nothing left on it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that somebody who does that, they waste all their good deeds just like that there will be nothing left of it on the day of judgment for those good deeds. So a smooth stone, there is dust on it, it falls, and it becomes completely bare of anything, right? And we don't want to be like that. Verse 265, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving the example of a believer. وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ, and the example of those who spend their wealth ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, seeking means to the approval of Allah, وَتَثْبِيتًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ, and assuring themselves, is like a garden, jannatin, garden, birabwatin, on high ground, asabaha wabilun, which is hit by a downpour, right? We looked at the word wabilun in the previous verse also, which meant heavy rain, heavy downpour. Fa'atat ukulaha di'fain, so it yields its fruits in double. Fa'illam yusbiha wabilun fatal, and if it is not hit by a downpour, then a drizzle. Wallahu bima ta'maluna basir, and Allah of what you do is all seen. The word ibtigha, what are the root letters for that? Ba, gha, ya. Ba, gha, ya, ibtigha. It means seeking. Mardat, root letters for mardat. Rada, wow. Rada, wow. It means pleasure, to seek pleasure. Tasbitan. 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 Sa, ba, ta. Okay, I heard difference. Sa, ba, ta. That's right. It means certainly, it means assuring. Okay. So sometimes we might do things where others may force us to do things. For example, let's say even take the example of this class. right? Are we coming to the class because somebody is forcing us? You know, your mom is saying you have to go to this class. Or do you want to come to this class? Right? So the question is, are you doing good things because somebody is forcing you to do it and you're doing it grudgingly? Or you are doing things because you want to do good things, to seek the pleasure of Allah? Right? That is what defines, that is where you get the reward of the good deed, is when you do it for the sake of Allah. Birabwatin. Birabwatin means what? Root letters? Raba, wow. It means height, on a height. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that tell those people who are doing things for the sake of Allah, right? Their example is like that of a garden that is on a high ground. Now if a garden is on a high ground, it means it has fertile soil, right? It has ample light, sunlight to grow things, and it looks like this, a nice garden, right, with all flowers and everything else. So what is important is intention matters. But then in verse 266, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ayawuddu ahadukum, would one of you like to have antakuna lahu jannatun, to have a garden of palm trees, min nakhiliyum wa anabiyum, of palm trees and grapevines, tajri min tahtihal anharu, underneath which rivers flow, lahu fiha min kulli thamarat, in which he has from every fruit. So the example is now being given is that, think of this, is that would you want to be a person who has a garden? The garden has, you know, all these palm trees and grapevines, and there are rivers which are flowing underneath the garden, and then you have all kinds of fruits in that garden. So it's a healthy garden, right? Somebody has spent probably a lot of time, right, taking care of the garden, putting the proper things, the proper seeds and everything else in the garden, watering the garden, things like that, right? They've spent a lot of time. And it also means that maybe that's a source of income for somebody, right? For the fruits that somebody has in their farm, for example. So maybe it is something like this. Somebody's grown trees and there is rivers which are flowing and all those good stuff, right? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the verse continues, wa asabahu, but he is afflicted with old age. Wa asabahu al-kibaru, he is afflicted with old age. Walahu zurriyatun du'afa, and his has weak offspring. Fa asabaha i'sarun, and it is hit by a whirlwind. Fihi narun fahtarakat, containing fire, and it is burned. So the example is, it is a garden that has trees, there are rivers that are flowing underneath the garden, there's all kinds of fruits in the garden, and now this person who's worked hard probably all his life to take care of the garden, he is old, right? Now if he is old, means he does not have the energy left to put all the effort that he put in to build the garden, right? Which means that he spent a lot of time taking care of it, but now he's old, he cannot take care of it anymore. Now the garden then gets ruined. There is a whirlwind, right, like a tornado that comes, and there is fire in the tornado, right? It says fihi narun, there is fire in it, and the whole garden is burned down, right? So think of it, an old man has a garden, spent a lot of time building the garden, and now when he's old and he has kids who are either weak and cannot help him, or are small and cannot help him, right? Either way, and the garden is now burned down. So there is no source of income that is left for this family. What does that mean? That now this person has to depend on others. The person is old, he cannot take care of it on his own, right? And now it's all burned down. Now the way we can relate this is, think of it this way. Let's say you're playing a game and you've reached a new level and you spent hours playing this game, right? And you reach this like last level, and you spend like 10 hours playing it, and you're really into it, right? And somebody's calling you and you're not even hearing all that, and you're just focused on finishing this game. And then all of a sudden, you lose that last life as well, and it dies. Think of that very moment, how bad you would feel, right? At that very second of, man, I spent so much time doing all this, and now I don't have any life left, and now it's gonna go, and you throw things, in anger. You can't do anything at the time, right? But you are angry, you're frustrated. And that's the example of this person who is frustrated. He spent so much time doing something, but all of that is gone. The fire comes and burns everything, right? There is nothing left of that garden. And Allah says, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمُ الْآيَاتِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses that you might ponder. So Allah is giving this example of a person who spent so much time doing good, maybe doing deeds that he wanted other people to show. So he was wasting his deeds. But then you get to the day of judgment, and that is when you will find out if you truly wasted your deeds or not. That is when your book gets open. But you have no coming back from that time. You would have wasted everything by that time if you did things to show off others. So who is the most bankrupt person on the day of judgment? Somebody who spends a lot of time, well, I don't know about that, but somebody who spends a lot of time doing good, right? But doing good not with the intention for the sake of Allah. Doing good to show off others. Doing good so people can call him that he's a good person. Right? And he comes on the day of judgment, and you know what's going to happen to people like that? People who come on that day of judgment, if they took rights from somebody, right? If they hurt somebody and did azab and took the rights of somebody else, their good deeds will be given away to those people. And once they run out of their good deeds, the bad deeds of others will be given to this person. And this person is a hadith, is the most bankrupt person on the day of judgment. Somebody who spends a lot of time doing good, thinking he's doing good, right? But doing good not with the intention for the sake of Allah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from being in such a position. So think, reflect, act and change. And then we ask this dua of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to spend in the way of Allah, but with the intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And then, oh Allah, make our intentions pure and allow us to do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and removes nifaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards for giving 700 times more. Will I have rewards for showing off or insulting the creation of Allah? Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need our money? And I can spend with sincerity to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and live a happy life.
So what to do? Reflect, choose and act. Noting down at least one thing that you learned out of this as your favorite gem, right, in that page on the book. Then we'll inshallah be ready to share it next time, inshallah. Okay. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم.